Here are the 6 books that I read in April. And yes, I am aware this is coming very late, but what can I say? I was busy reading. First up is Assassin's Blade. I started the Throne of Glass series in April and I gave this book a 4.5 stars. I really wanted to give it a 5-star though. This book follows a young assassin as she navigates dangerous missions, shifting loyalties, and also her own sense of identity as she begins to question the life that she's been taught to live. This is the prequel to the Throne of Glass series. It gives a better context into who our main character Selena is through 5 interconnected stories of different missions that she's been on in her life before the actual series begins. I absolutely love Selena, and I am so glad I started with Assassin's Blade first because some people read Throne of Glass first, but this I feel like laid a really good foundation to who she is and why she is the way that she is once the Throne of Glass series starts. She is so badass. She has a temper, she's very cocky and confident in herself, and even though she is an assassin, she knows what's right from wrong. She stands by justice, and if anything, she is justice personified in a character. But it's really interesting understanding how she becomes justice personified in a character because she's quite young in this book. She's like 16. I really don't want that to put you off from reading it though, because it's not your average typical teenager story at all. But we do see that she is very flawed and that she really is learning about herself as she navigates these missions that she's on. There's a lot of firsts in this book. She falls in love for the first time. She starts to question everything that she knows for the first time. I guess in her own way enacts betrayal for the first time. And it also gave me a good idea of what the world of Throne of Glass looks like before starting the actual series. So highly recommend for those of you that want to delve into Throne of Glass to start with this book. Next up is Throne of Glass. This is officially the first book in the series and I gave her 4 stars. This story follows Selena as she competes in a deadly competition to become the king's champion so that she might have a chance at her own freedom, only to discover darker forces at play. The story does get creepy sometimes because of these darker forces. I feel like there are definitely elements of horror in this. I had moments where my heart was beating really fast as I was reading this book because I was just so scared for her. With that being said, I think it's a fantastic mix of adventure, mystery, a romance subplot. There is somewhat of a love triangle in this and a very healthy dose of slow building tension that I feel like sets up the larger series very well. I absolutely love the competition and the trial aspect in this book. I love that she had to gain her respect. Like it wasn't just given to her, she had to properly fight to gain it. I love the female friendship in this book. And I'm a big fan of castles. Most of this book's story is set in a big old castle. So if you're into that as well, I think you would enjoy this too. This is fantastic, sets up the wider series very well. The only reason why I rated it lower than the Assassin's Blade is because I didn't cry. But Assassin's Blade had me weeping. And I hear people say this. People say that tragedies are the best stories because they are the stories that we remember. I beg to differ. I like happily ever afters, but at the same time, I can also admit that I'm a little bit hypocritical when it comes to the rating of these 2 books because this one made me cry and this one made me scared for her. Between fear and sadness, I gave sadness 0.5 stars more. The 3rd book I read was Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. I gave this book 4 stars. I really wanted to give it 5, but I had to question myself. I feel like I was giving it 5 stars because it was such a classic. That's why I decided to give it 4 stars instead, because I feel like that was a more realistic score. So the story follows Elizabeth Bennet as she navigates love, class, and first impressions. She learns how pride and prejudice can lead and also mislead our understanding of others. And I will say, Mr. Darcy is probably the first book boyfriend I have ever come across. He's broody, he's snobby, he's a little arrogant, but he's actually super soft-hearted and so devoted once he falls for someone, which equals my perfect concoction of a book boyfriend. Because I am a fantasy reader, so I'm drawn to books that are more plot-driven, whereas this book clearly is a character-driven book, which made it a little hard for me to get into in the beginning. But that could also just be because I'm coming off of, you know, Throne of Glass. But I did get into it, especially in the later parts of the book, and I was just as excited to see what was going to happen to the characters, even though I already knew what was going to happen to the characters. So I think that attests to how well the story is written. Adult Jasmine reading this book has come to realize that she is Prejudice and he is Pride. And I think ultimately this book is about two flawed individuals who are incredibly attracted to each other and are able to completely be themselves with one another, even if it means clashing and losing each other. And ultimately both being able to reflect on themselves, both being able to right their wrongs, admit their mistakes, and see the good in one another despite knowing each other's shortcomings. I think that is what makes this such a memorable and real love story for me. I enjoyed it. I would definitely read it again sometime in the future, and I'm glad I revisited it as an adult. I also read Powerless by Lauren Roberts. This was a 3.5-star read for me. So the story follows an ordinary girl in a society of elites that have supernatural abilities as she is forced into deadly trials where survival means hiding who she really is. Everyone that has powers are elites, but because she has none, she is ordinary and thus powerless, and thus the name of the book. They have something called the purging trials in the book that's supposed to showcase who the strongest elite is, and I think it happens every few years. This aspect reminded me a lot of Hunger Games, so it definitely was nice going down that lane of nostalgia. Her competitor is also her love interest, which makes it all the more interesting as well, and the love interest happens to be the prince. This is actually the first YA series that I have read in a while. I grew up reading Divergent, Hunger Games, and all that jazz, so I guess I picked it up because I was trying to find my younger self, and I definitely did, I think. Some of me, at least. There is an adequate amount of plot twists in this book, and once the trials begin, it is definitely a page-turner. The dialogue, however, it's cringy. I'm sorry. I've seen people critique this about the book. I get it. I get it. Once the main characters realized their love and adoration for each other, it just became a little much. Some lines like, "She is my undoing," was just repeated too much. I don't know if this is because maybe I've been reading adult fantasy. I haven't been reading young adult in a while, so is this the only way to... No, I don't think so. I think there are many tools to use to tell us as readers how much tension there is between characters or how much interest they have in each other without always using cringy dialogue. That is also why I gave it a 3.5 stars. With that being said, I did enjoy it as just like a read to get that nostalgic young adult fantasy feel that I had back in the days. And I did finish actually all the books in the series, which I will do a wrap-up of in my next video. I would still recommend it though if you're looking for a fun time. And if you're into cringy dialogue, who knows? Could just be me. The next book I read is The Rose Bargain by Sasha Peyton Smith. I gave this book 4 stars. The story follows a young woman who is navigating a society where people can bargain with fae for things like beauty and status. This causes her to weigh ambition, identity, and the true cost of power. The book world feels like Bridgerton, but with darker fantasy elements like fae bargains, hidden consequences. There is a love triangle between our main character and the 2 brothers who are also princes. Although in this book it's very clear she leans more towards one. So it's that push and pull between love and duty. I thought that the world was really interesting. You know, the concept of mixing Bridgerton and fae, I mean 2 things that I very much like, was a fun read. And even though I say it's a fun read, it's not just a light read either. It's actually interesting. The end of this book left me on such a huge cliffhanger, and the plot twists were definitely there. So I am very much worried for our main character and how she's gonna get herself out of this one. Luckily, book 2, The Thorn Queen, is out, but I just need to figure out how I can get my hands on that here in China, because I don't think it's available here yet. I also liked that the main male character isn't all-powerful, all-knowing, because that happens a lot in romantasy books. We get to see some really vulnerable, very mortal sides of the main male character quite early on, which I found refreshing. The last book I read was A Midsummer Night's Dream by William Shakespeare. I don't know how to rate this story because I don't think I fully got it. Well, okay, so the story follows a group of lovers who become entangled in a magical forest where fairies and spells cause confusion and chaos and unexpected romance. So very whimsical, but because it is Shakespearean English and this is the first Shakespearean piece that I've read, I think I needed to first get over the shock of that. I read the play in book form and then I had to listen to the audiobook again, and even then I didn't fully understand the story because it was very chaotic. And though I say I didn't fully understand it, I do think the flurry and the mix-up of everything is exactly what Shakespeare is trying to portray, that love can be very chaotic and things don't always go as planned. But I think the overarching message I got from this is, if it's meant to be, it will be. I think the next step is definitely to watch the play, because maybe that will make it easier for me to understand exactly what is going on in each scene. But at least now I can say I have read A Midsummer Night's Dream, which I guess is a flex in and of itself. Okay, that is all the books that I read in April, coming to you very late. Also, let me know if you've read any of these books, your thoughts on it, or if you would like to read any of these books based on what you're hearing. And I will see you in the next one.